I sat in my car with the engine running. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight that my knuckles were white. I was shaking. My brother Steve had just said 4 words to me inside that house. Those 4 words were echoing in my mind like a curse. They were simple words, but they were violent. I looked in the rearview mirror at the house I just left. It was a beautiful house. The lights were on. My family was inside eating cake and drinking coffee. They were my blood. They were the only people I had left in this world. But I put the car in gear and drove away. I did not say goodbye. I did not look back. And I knew in my heart that I would never step foot in that house again. My name is David. I am 71 years old. For my entire life, I was the peacemaker. I was the one who swallowed my pride. I was the one who apologized even when I did nothing wrong. I thought that if I was nice enough, my brother would finally respect me. I thought that if I gave enough, he would finally love me. I was a fool. 10 minutes ago, we were sitting at the kitchen table. I thought we were having a normal conversation. But then my brother looked me in the eye. He smiled a cold little smile. And he delivered those 4 words. He did not yell. He whispered them. But those 4 words hit me harder than a physical punch. They revealed a dark truth that I had been ignoring for 40 years. If you ever hear these words from your sibling, do not try to fix it. Do not argue. Just get your keys and leave. Here's what happened. To understand why those 4 words hurt so much, you have to understand the last 5 years of my life. 5 years ago, our mother was diagnosed with dementia. It is a cruel disease. She forgot how to cook. Then she forgot how to dress herself. Finally, she forgot my name. My brother Steve lives in a big city 3 hours away. He has a busy job as a lawyer. He has a wife and a summer home. When Mom got sick, Steve said he could not help. He said he was too busy. He said he could not disrupt his career. So the burden fell on me. I am retired. I am single. So everyone assumed I had nothing better to do. I moved into Mom's house. I slept on a lumpy mattress in the guest room. I woke up 3 times every night to help her use the bathroom. I became a nurse. I became a cook. I became a cleaner. I watched my own health fall apart. My back started hurting from lifting her out of bed. My blood pressure went up from the stress. I also spent my own money. Mom did not have much savings. When the roof leaked, I paid for it. When the heater broke, I paid for it. I drained my entire retirement account to keep that house warm for her. I never asked Steve for a penny. I thought that he would see my sacrifice. I thought that one day he would look at me and say, "Thank you, David. You saved our family." I was waiting for validation, but that validation never came. Last week, Mom passed away in her sleep. We buried her on a rainy Tuesday, and that brings us to the dinner at Steve's house, the dinner where everything fell apart. The funeral flowers were still fresh on the grave, but my brother Steve did not want to talk about memories. He wanted to talk about business. We were sitting in his expensive leather chairs. He poured himself a glass of wine. He did not offer me one. He pulled out a folder of papers. It was Mom's bank statements. I felt a knot form in my stomach. I knew what was coming. Steve put on his reading glasses. He looked like a tax auditor, not a grieving son. He started pointing at the numbers. He said, "David, why is the savings account so empty? David, why did you spend $5,000 on a new roof last winter?" He looked at me with suspicion, as if I had stolen the money for myself. I could not believe my ears. I told him, "Steve, the roof was leaking water onto Mom's bed. I had to fix it." I told him, "Steve, the medicine cost $800 a month." He did not listen. He just shook his head. He said, "Well, that is a problem, David, because I was counting on that inheritance." He said, "We need to sell the house immediately to make up for the loss." He was talking about selling our childhood home like it was a used car. He did not care that I had nowhere to go. He did not care that I had spent my own money to keep that house standing. He only cared about his 50% share. I felt the blood rush to my face. My hands started to shake. For 40 years, I had stayed quiet to keep the peace, but I could not stay quiet anymore. I took a deep breath. I looked him in the eye, and I finally defended myself. But I was not ready for his answer. The room was getting hot. I looked at the bank statement spread out on the table. Then I looked at my brother. I felt something snap inside me. I said, "Steve, you do not understand. I did not spend that money on vacations. I spent it on keeping our mother alive." I stood up. My voice started to get loud. I said, "I gave up 5 years of my life. I lost my friends. I lost my freedom. I destroyed my back lifting her wheelchair. I did everything that you refused to do." I poured my heart out. I wanted him to understand the pain I went through. I waited for him to soften. I waited for him to say, "I am sorry, David, I did not know." But he did not soften. He leaned back in his leather chair. He looked at me with a bored expression. He swirled the wine in his glass. Then he looked me dead in the eye and delivered the insult that ended our brotherhood. He said it calmly. He said it without a shred of emotion. Todd, he said, "Nobody asked you to." The room went dead silent. I froze. I replayed the words in my head. Nobody asked you to. In that split second, I realized that my sacrifice meant nothing to him, but the real shock was not what he said. It was what happened next. I sat there while the words echoed in my head. Nobody asked you to. It was the most painful thing anyone has ever said to me. But as I looked at my brother's smug face, I realized something. He was right. Technically, he was right. Nobody forced me to care. Nobody held a gun to my head and told me to love our mother. I did it because I had a heart. And he did not do it because he did not care. But he was using those 4 words as a weapon. He was using them to erase his own guilt. If he could convince himself that I was just a foolish volunteer, then he did not have to feel bad about being a terrible son. He was dismissing my sacrifice so he could sleep better at night. It was a trap. If I screamed at him, he would call me crazy. If I cried, he would call me weak. He wanted a reaction. He wanted me to beg for his approval. For 70 years I played that game. I always tried to win his love. But in that moment, something inside me died. The part of me that needed a brother died. I looked at him, and I did not see family anymore. I saw a stranger. I saw a man who was incapable of gratitude. I felt a strange sensation. I did not feel sad. I felt free. I stood up slowly from the chair. Steve looked at me. He was waiting for the fight. He had his arguments ready. But I did not give him the satisfaction of a fight. I gave him something much worse. I picked up my car keys from the table. The metal made a small clicking sound against the wood. Steve looked confused. He blinked. He said, "Sit down, David. We are not finished discussing the house. We need to decide a listing price." He expected me to sit back down. He expected me to argue. He expected me to defend myself again. But I just looked at him. My face was completely blank. I did not feel anger anymore. I felt nothing. It was like looking at a wall. I turned around and started walking toward the door. I heard his chair scrape against the floor as he stood up. His voice got louder. He said, "Do not walk away from me. You are being dramatic again. You are being too sensitive." He was trying to use the old triggers. He was trying to push the buttons that used to work for 50 years. But the buttons were disconnected. I opened the front door. The cold night air hit my face. It felt clean. He yelled one last time. He said, "If you walk out that door, do not expect me to call you." I paused for 1 second. I did not turn around. I simply said, "That is exactly what I am counting on, Steve." I stepped out and closed the heavy oak door behind me. I did not slam it. I closed it gently. The click of the latch was the most satisfying sound I have ever heard in my life. I walked to my car, and for the first time in 5 years, my shoulders felt light. I was alone, but I was not lonely. But the story does not end at the driveway, because when you cut a toxic person off, they do not just disappear. They try to come back. 3 days later, my phone rang. It was Steve. He left a voicemail. He sounded angry. He said I was being childish. He said I needed to grow up and answer the phone. I listened to the message, and then I deleted it. I realized something important that day. Steve thought he was hurting me with those 4 words, but he actually gave me a gift. When he said, "Nobody asked you to," he set me free. He gave me a permission slip. If nobody asked me to help, then I do not have to help anymore. I do not have to try to fix a relationship that is already broken. I do not have to earn love from someone who cannot give it. I am 71 years old, and I am finally retired from the job of being the good brother. My life is quieter now. I do not have family dinners on Thanksgiving, but I also do not have insults. I do not have stress. I do not have a knot in my stomach. I have peace, and peace is worth more than DNA. If you are listening to this and you have a sibling who makes you feel small, listen to me closely. You cannot change them. You can only change your address. Do not wait for an apology that will never come. Take their insults as your permission to leave. You are not too sensitive. You are just finished being a target. My name is David, and I chose dignity over dysfunction. If you are ready to choose yourself, hit that subscribe button. Let us walk this path of freedom together.